So here we are for the second basic clothing video, and we're going to talk about collars on this one. We're going to make a standard shirt collar. Collars are a bit funny. The collars are like annoyingly hard, and I always see people do these completely the wrong way, where they'll sculpt them out of the mesh, and that's just horrendous. Never sculpt a collar out of a mesh, because the collar is a separate piece of fabric that's been folded over. It's been stiffened with a card or something like that, and it's been folded over, and it's actually quite form fitting. Where everything else on the besides the cuffs, everything else on the shirt is loose and dangly. This is actually quite a stiff object. And if we bring in a little reference piece here, you'll see that obviously you can see inside. This isn't just a flat against the surface. It's just a little cave either side. So having these on the actual mesh is a no-go. It's a no-go. And again, this is just time and practice, and once you do it once, you know how to do it, then you get better and better and better. In the past, I've just done this inside of Maya because I find it easier to do stuff in Maya. But what I'm going to do is try and do this all inside of ZBrush so that we're able to know how to do it in ZBrush. So what I've done here is I've made the beginnings of a basic shirt. So you can see I've got my body, I've got my cuffs, I've got my split down the middle. It's been Z-remeshed, all that kind of jazz. I've got my t-shirt cut right there. But if I look at my reference here, you can see that if I get my pen as well, clear, there you go. Then we've also got, so that's our t-shirt cut that we made before. But then above there, we've got a bit coming up. I don't know why I've done it in a really awkward position. There we go. There we go. So yeah, so we've got our current mesh there. But then we've also got the collar section coming up. Like that. It comes round. Obviously, because there you've got a button right there. This comes round, it obviously goes around. Like that. So this is a bit that we've not made yet. Because if you look at a shirt, you'll have stitching around here where the collar actually gets sewn on. And then we have the actual collar itself going around. This goes all the way around. What we're going to do first is, if I do it off to the side, is where obviously we've got our t-shirt. We're going to make the beginning of the collar section go around. And this actual collar, this bit, we're actually going to make pointing up first, and then we're going to fold it round to go down like this. You can try and pull it out the other way and try and pull it out like that. I find it much easier to go up and then out and then around. But again, I don't do this a lot, so this is good practice for me. It's good practice for you. Okay, so let's clear that. Let's go back. Right then. So I've got that off to the side. Awesome. So I'm going to be using Z Modeler for this, so back to the Z Modeler. And I'm going to be jumping in and out of using temporary polygroups in this area. So this area might look a bit gross at the end with colours, but we'll see. Or in fact, I don't actually need to do that. I don't think I need to at first. Okay, so I'm looking at my reference. I'm seeing where the actual collar begins, which is this first initial bit where the button is. And it goes all the way around. So let's do that. I'm going to hover over, make sure I've got symmetry turned on, hover over. So this is symmetrical as well. This is a perfectly symmetrical piece of geometry. Should be anyway. And I'm going to come to extrude. There's extrude. And I'm going to look to see what so underneath, so I'm in extrude here, and then my target, this is what I'm actually going to be extruding. So I'm going to find which is the best one of these. Is it poly loop? Is it poly edge loop? Whatever. So I'm going to just go for edge loop, edge poly first, see what that does. So hover over and click up. Okay, that's looking okay. Okay, there's something's there, but obviously we're not going all the way around. So then what I've got to do is say, right, next one. Okay, again, it's only doing one of them. Edge loop. There we go, that's better. So that's doing everything, so I can bring that up. Oh, make sure I've got, I don't think I've turned on double. So I need to go back, turn on double. There we go. So bring that up a little bit. So just like with everything as well, this isn't going to give you the perfect result straight away. This will give you a form in which to then take further. Okay, so that one's kind of working. Oops, it is. That one's kind of working. It's alright. Okay, let's check out any others. So mesh border. Nope, that does everything. We don't want that to happen. Poly loop. Same thing. Okay, so yeah. Edge loop is going to be our one. That's good. Now what else do we need to have in there? Is there any... So regular extrude. Okay, it's pretty much acting the exact same way, but it feels like I've got a bit more control over it. Free angle, planar angle. Is this going to give me better results? Oh, no, that definitely doesn't work. Definitely does not work, that. Perpendicular angle. No. Okay, so best off using free angle. Free sides, extend sides. Okay, that doesn't really feel like it's doing much, so parallel sides. Okay, that's good. That's actually keeping the geometry in a better form. You can see if we go back to the other two, it's free sides. You can see how just in the middle of the collar there, here, it's getting turned into triangles. What this parallel sides is doing is actually maintaining the width of everything. Nothing's actually falling into each other, which is good. Although I don't like that stitching together. I want to see if I can get rid of that. Let's see what taper sides does. Okay, ooh, no, not really. That's not really working for me. So I'm going to stick with parallel sides. Single row, I'm okay with this one. Free move, snap to surface. Let's see what snap to surface does. Okay, some of this is actually disappearing because it's snapping to the surface, so I'm going to keep that to free move. Smart attraction is currently on, so let's go normal attraction. Okay, let's go no attraction. Okay, no attraction I like. No attraction is basically how everything's snapping together. So I'm going to keep no attractions on. Force symmetry, don't force symmetry. Obviously you want symmetry, so we're going to keep that on. Okay, so just going through and checking some of these options will give you a better result. It's how we learn about this sort of stuff. We go through, we test something. So what I'm going to do is, with all those options turned on, like this, I'm going to bring up that collar. In fact, actually, I'm going to just second guess myself, actually, and actually just change to free sides. Normal traction. Okay. Yep. As you can see there, I've got a bit of an issue with part of the mesh at the back and part of the mesh at the front. So let's just go and solve that. So we've got a movement tool. I'm literally just going to grab that vertex and drag it in. I'm in control. I'm going to force that thing into position. This is one of the things I don't like about ZBrush is anything in the middle really struggles to get pulled over to the side. So what I'm going to do is just turn off symmetry, pull one side over like this, and then I'm going to do mirror and weld, and then I'm going to delete this thing in the middle that gets created. So back to this, I'm going to just delete island. There we go. So deleting island just literally deletes a polygon which has no connection to anything else. There we go. Okay, so you know it's not perfectly ideal. It's not the easiest thing to do in the world. But all we're doing at first is just getting that shape in there. I'm taking my time. Make sure everything's nice and straight. Oh, we had that issue in the back, didn't we? So yeah, let's just transparency. Let's just start dragging this back out of the neck. There we go, and then we can just like that. Okay, so, 5-10 minutes of just faffing around there. Not even that, looking at the clock. About 5 minutes of just faffing around, moving things around. Okay, so now I've made this little inside the collar section. So one thing I do not want to see is the stiff part of the collar, the actual collar itself, coming out of the t-shirt section. Remember, you've got that little ring around the neck, the little thing that holds everything together. Now it's time to make the collar. But what I'm not going to do is make the collar coming out of the entire loop of this. Because if you look, you'll see that just inside the collar there, where the top button is, there's a little bit of a gap on both sides. There's like an inch or half an inch of gap. So I'm going to take off. I'm going to use polygroups. In fact, I'm going to just fix something I've seen, because that's going to drive me crazy if I don't fix that. There you go. So using polygroups, what I'm going to do is polygroup these two internal faces into its own thing. So polygroup. Remember, I'm just holding Alt to make those temporary polygroups. I'm going to polygroup this into its own group for now. Give it a nice color. There we go. And then I'm going to do an extrusion from here. So I'm just going to extrude again. Oops. Let's find the right one again. In fact, you know what? We're probably best off flipping that, in fact. So doing it from all this side instead. There we go. Right, so I've left the two inside areas there, the same polygroup as the neck. I've made a new polygroup going around there so that I can change this to polyloop. And that should... No, we're still doing it. So I've got to find the right option for this. That's fine, we'll leave it as for now. I'll delete those faces. So, all I'm doing there is dragging up and then dragging down and get the initial shape in there. Again, the initial shape. It's not going to be perfect straight away. Okay, cool. So these two green bits I'm just going to get rid of. Boop, boop, and delete. Polygroup all. There you go. There you go. So what I've done there is literally just extrude it up, extrude it out really. And then I'm going to use BMT or move topological to just move the collar. So I'm not going to move the green bits. And my point now is to look at the reference and see how that folds. Yes, you could argue that there's probably going to be two edges going around this neck to help to make sure it properly conforms, but at first, I'm just going to keep it nice and basic. I'm not going to try and overcomplicate stuff. So I'm going to use this flat surface now and move topological, so that I'm only moving the polygroup that I want to move. I'm going to go through polygon by polygon, or vertex by vertex. That's why I've just made my brush so small, because it was interacting too much with surrounding areas. So I've just moved it, made it quite a small polygon, quite a small brush, and I'm moving vertex by vertex into place. Everything's still symmetrical as well at this point. I've not overcomplicated it with asymmetricality yet at all. Let's make sure everything's nice and regulated as well. That's a collar, there we go. And then I can add a couple of edges. So I'm going to insert multiple edge loops. I'm going to just make those two. There we go. So there you go. Again, move topological. And then I can just carefully, I don't want to make, because this is still meant to be a stiff piece of geometry, a stiff piece of, it's not, in fact, it's like fabric wrapped around cardboard or something. I'm just going to shape them a little bit. There we go. And then from there I can start to pull things across. You know, I can mask off areas, pull them across. I use nice big move topological and carefully move stuff across. Again, move topological is great for that because you don't necessarily need polygroups, though they help. So I'm just pulling one side out a little bit and just pulling this in. Again, being careful but confident. So I'm bringing the buttonhole side over. And then pushing the button side under. That's actually really important for people who want to do character art and character modeling and stuff. Pay attention to what side things button on. Oops, daisy. Where's my shirt gone? There's my shirt. Yeah, pay attention to what side things button on. Because there is kind of rulings for that kind of stuff, like what's not like governmental rulings, but you know, like fashion rulings. You always button from this side, or a female blouse will button from one side, a male blouse will button from another. You know, male shirts will have stitching somewhere, and female blouses wouldn't, kind of thing. Okay. There you go. And right there, you got a shirt. That's a shirt right there, isn't it? Look at that. Obviously, when you add your subdivision to it, your dynamic subdivision, it's going to mess up a little bit. But this is where, just like we did in the last video, if you go around and stiffen the edges, you want to be made stiff. Also, just while I'm here, actually, to make this, talking about stiffening and using the Z modeler and stuff, this is very sharp around the neck here. If I want to start making this a little bit nicer, I can start to do things like, I could try bevel, see what bevel does for me. You know, does bevel do a good job? It does an alright job. But what I like doing, being a bit more manual, is going in there and inserting an edge. Oh, inserting an edge, single edge, so I can control where it is. I'll round the top like that, and then I'm going to transpose that edge. Put my control in the middle like that, so it affects everything from the middle. And then I'm just going to, again, it's very much a Maya thing I'm doing here, so I'm just going to, as you can see, I'm just moving it up and out like that. So all I've done there is add an edge in there, because then I can go through and then start to crease some edges. So I'm going to go edge loop partial. So what edge loop partial does is it do an edge loop, and again I've got to look for what's happening. Is edge loop partial will do an edge loop up until it ends. It comes to an end of a loop, but this case it's traveling all the way around. So what I got to do is find the right one. Not poly loop. I might have to do this one manually, so I do each one of these edges manually like that, up to the neck. On the other side. And then I should be able to do partial on this one. Yep, because then it goes all the way around the neck. So when I press D, there you go. So now we're not losing as much width there. I can also come into the vertex here. Increase this point like that. Do it on the other side. In fact, is it not wanting to do it? It's not wanting to do it. Something's not working with that. I don't mind that for now. I can always change. I can always fix that up later on. And then I'm gonna do the inside of the shirt there, top of the shirt there. So basically creasing all the points that I don't want to get super smooth, that I still wanted to maintain that nice sharp edge. So I run that around the wrist here, here. Because hopefully you can see the difference there. This on the left is a crease side, this on the right is a non-crease side. You see we're losing that length on that one, but we're not losing it on this one. There you go. So just by using that crease tool, you can really pull some of that information in. I'm not 100% sure, unless I'm just completely doing something wrong. I'm not 100% sure why I'm making things. It's creasing in the corners there. Maybe I'm thinking a bit too much like Maya at the minute, but there we go. But there, just using the crease tool inside the Z modeler, you're able to stop that over deformation that happens. But you know, boom, look at that collar. Now there are some kind of dirty geometry ways we can solve this over curling collar. You can see there we've got a bit much too much of a curve. Where obviously we want to have this. We can do some, you know, some dirty stuff we can do with the geometry, such as, let's see what we can do. We could split. Do something like that on both ends. So you can see there, boom. Now that might cause us issues later on, possibly, but because the collar is such a simple shape geometrically, that isn't really gonna, I don't think that's gonna matter. All I'm doing there is make sure I'm hovering over the vertex. Make sure my brush is really small as well. Over the vertex, and then I'm going to go to split, and then just keep all these standards, so point, keep quad center, that kind of stuff. And basically, the smaller I make this, the sharper this corner is going to be. So if I make it like that, there we go. And then that should be exactly the same. If I just click and do the same thing here, it'll do the exact same thing. That's one thing I really love about Z Modeler, is if on one section here I decide to go like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it this big, I don't have to remember anything over this one, because it just remembers this. It remembers this last input as almost like a click, as a remembrance. So I can just click on this one now, and it does the exact same thing I just did on the other one. So unlike in Maya, where we, you know, it's good to know numbers in the channel box that we can go in and kind of change and stuff, it's not necessarily the case for this. You know, it's not necessarily the case at all for this. So I can go in there, make a nice tight little corner like that, and then just click on the opposite side, because it's saying it can't do it because the whole mesh is asymmetrical. So I have to do it manually, so I just have to click on this one. There you go. Nice. And it's just about taking your time. You know, there's no rush. Take your time. Because then you can use your nice... Don't know why that's doing that. Why is that all curled up there? I've done a thing. Oh, I did a thing. There we go. Yep. There you go. So then, yeah, you can go in with those cloth brushes, or you know, your standard brushes, your normal brushes. You know, and do what you need to. But again, I cannot stress how these won't do all the work for you. These are just basically tools. Once you know what each one of them does and how they react to the surface and stuff, then you can start to use them. Like quite independently, quite fluidly, quite dynamically. But before that, you need to make sure you understand how these things work. Yep, there you go. And like I said, just pay attention to what you're doing. You know, make sure that, like, because I'm messing around with it then, I've started merging the top and the bottom of these sections of clothing, so I gotta make sure that I separate them enough. There you go. So I'm gonna bring when I bring my buttons in and stuff, it'll look a lot nicer. But there you go. You know, even making a shirt, a collar, all that kind of jazz, it's actually really simple. So for your Javi Bardems, for your Buscemi's, I think everyone's wearing a shirt actually. Yeah, Mira's wearing a shirt, Javi Bardem's wearing a shirt, Buscemi's wearing a kind of shirt, he's wearing a bowling shirt, and Uzo's the only difference, you know, because he's wearing kind of scrub overalls. So, but there you go. You know, nice and simple. You just gotta take your time, and you can effectively do the exact same thing inside of Maya, except the difference of that is you're bringing stuff back and forth. So there might be issues with if you export it wrong or if you import it wrong. There might be problems. All I've done there is done everything inside of ZBrush using the Z modeler, which takes a little bit of time to get used to, but is a really good set of tools. Okay, that brings this one to an end.